Hello and welcome to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. In this segment, we talk about different ways you can succeed in your creative career and whether, in fact, we all define success the same way. Hope you enjoy.
Hey, Pat.
Yes, James.
Where'd you go? I can't see you. I hear you, but I can't see you.
I just stepped outside of the clubhouse.
You're not in your cloak of invisibility?
I'm back.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you, this clubhouse feels porous. There's a little draft in here, isn't there?
I know. I dematerialized and I rematerialized on the other side because the walls are porous. And so am I.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And what's even more incredible is that this aligns with what you and I wanted to talk about.
That's so weird. That hardly ever happens.
I know, it never happens. It's like this little miracle. But in all actuality, so we had an argument.
Oh my God, we argued pretty hard.
Yeah, we had a dust up.
We were both like
Really?
sort of rigidly facing our Zoom cameras with looks of passive chagrin because we seemed to be arguing, but we didn't, it never happens. So we weren't sure.
Yeah, it was like, were we even communicating?
I don't know. I mean, at one point I said, just because you think that way doesn't mean I have to think that way.
Right. And I was thinking, but I'm making a statement of fact. Damn it.
Yeah, you were thinking you were.
It was terrible. It was horrible. I don't want to do it again. So, but what we came to was a realization because we were talking about, thinking about creative work or the creative economy or whatever you want to call it, sort of broadly, right? That there are these sort of islands of elites, right? So in publishing, it's the big five, in art, it's the big, huge galleries in LA and New York. In acting, it's Hollywood, New York stage. Like there's
Sorry to interrupt, but we are international. No. And so there's obviously galleries in London, Amsterdam.
London, Toronto, Vancouver, all around. I'm being very US centric.
Yeah.
But and so we were kind of talking about, having this sort of argument about, do they matter? Do they exist? Are they real? What are the consequences of, and that kind of thing. And what really is interesting that kind of launched the discussion was this notion of if them, why not me? Right. And so we took a breather, came back, and we both came up with this idea that, yes, there are these sort of clubs, but they're really porous because they need new creatives to produce work.
Yeah. Yeah. And so just to back out a little bit, so when you say it's sort of this perception of an elite in the field in these large centers, by elite, you don't mean necessarily that their work is objectively better than anyone else's because, art's so subjective in the first place, but that they have access to higher level decision makers that can make them more money, give them more exposure, all that stuff. And then when we say club, it's not that there's an actual club, it's that there are sort of cabals, can we call them cabals of joking. I'm joking. There are these very, sort of, what do you call them? There's these almost closed systems, but not quite, because they are absolutely porous. However, what we're talking about is people who've maybe operated at high levels in the industry for quite some time, or are being brought up on that level because of, the networking and connections and, happenstance sometimes, right place, right time, right background, right knowledge. I'm not saying any of these people are there with their thumbs up their asses. They're actually, they're doing the work to be where they are. So that's what it's not a literal club. It's not even really a metaphorical club. It's just a thing where you're calling it because it can seem, if you're not, in it or know somebody who's in it, that it's very hard to get into. And I kind of hate all that terminology. I don't personally, this is why we had a big dust up, because I just don't believe that, I don't believe that that particular system is necessarily the best place for any artist to be. I think it can be
Right.
alienating, isolating. The money can be not great if you don't get a great deal and it's paid out over 3 or 4 years. You're still only getting 20 grand a year out of your art. So it's not a ticket to stardom for everybody. But put that aside. The idea is, yes, it's easier to make a successful publishing deal if you know people in that realm, and probably for the other creative realms as well. And what we're saying, though, is based on our own experience and the experience of the people we work with who are creative artists, is that those clubs are porous, or those realms, I guess, are porous because they would die, they would atrophy and die if all they ever got was work from somebody that they knew. They
Yeah.
have to have new material from new people in order to stay relevant even to the world.
Yeah. And I think, the way I would phrase it just, a little differently in that, you hear people say, oh, I can't make it in this realm or that realm because it's a closed system, because it's who you know, it's all this kind of stuff. And I would say, yes, but you
Yeah,
can't,
yeah,
right?
you can.
And the fact is that people do it every day.
Yeah,
And it's porous, not just because they need new content to constantly be, doing what they're doing,
hmm
but because there's so many people who are, this is what I want. I'm going to figure it out.
yeah,
I'm going to work at it. I'm going to figure out what I have to do to create something that's really new, unique, and good,
yeah,
and find ways to get it seen,
yeah,
um,
yeah,
observe, get it in these people's hands. And it's hard and it's a long shot. But then the other piece of this too, and I think this is maybe part of where you're coming from, is that it's not the only path,
exactly. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
There are many other very satisfying ways to be a working artist or creative and make a living from it.
absolutely. Yeah, make a good living. There's
Yeah.
some of our gifted achiever guests, they're not in one of these big centers. They're not super connected on the networky level, and yet they make very good money doing stuff they love to do. So there's nothing saying that the only route to, air quote success requires getting into what we're talking about. Um,
Mhm.
the other thing is that we're saying you can get in there if you want it enough, if you work enough, if you're talented enough, if you make a job out of it, kind of.
Bit of
Yeah. And
luck.
I know writers who've gotten in and then wanted out because it wasn't congenial. It didn't work for them. And so that's fine. Like, you don't know till you try. I think it depends on what kind of quality of life you want and how seriously you take the part where you got to work your ass off, because, there is serendipity and happenstance, and the world moves in mysterious ways. But I remember, who's that famous photographer? Annie Leibovitz? She a
Yep.
photographer? Yeah.
Yep.
She photographed like the Rolling Stones and all these big
Oh
bands.
yeah.
And she was interviewed once and said something along the lines of, the one thing that these major artists have in common is that they work incredibly hard.
Yeah. The amount of work that you put in, you'll get out of it. Also having the flexibility to say that, yes, I want to do this one pathway, or I want to get to where, I can call somebody up or send somebody an email and say, I need a door opened, and the door opens, right? I mean,
Right.
I was there briefly,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah.
had people I've worked with get there, and it's great. It really is nice. But the thing is you have to be very adaptable and agile and realize that that's not the only game,
Yeah.
right? But because it's so difficult to do and requires and demands so much, you can get into it's sort of a very negative way of thinking, which is, it's
hmm
a closed club. Nobody wants me. It's not meritocratic at all. This, right?
hmm
And so I think that's not necessarily true, because it is so dependent on new talent and new content and new ideas. But it's also not true that it's the only game
hmm
around. When I talk to prospective, authors, I say, I think of it as a tier, and
hmm
here's all the different levels of the tier that you can get access to where you have a book in your hands that has every chance of succeeding as anybody else's book.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, like you're saying, the people, the gifted achievers that we've spoken to, none of them are on that top tier. We're all trying to figure it out. But I would say that all of us, you and I included, have creative lives that we've built
Mm,
through hard work, skill, a little bit of luck. And we've had days that have been a lot harder than others.
hmm.
But we've managed to do this and build these lives that I like what I do and I like the work that I do. I'm
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah.
It does get frustrating because, you do want certain access or you do want certain experiences, but this is part of this thing. It's this constant practice of being a creative.
Yeah. I don't use the word tier because that implies a hierarchy. And
Mm,
I use mostly stuff like ecosystem because yeah, sure, there's this corner of the ecosystem where it's really nice over there, or it seems to
mm,
be, and that's where you want to be. But there are other corners of the ecosystem that are equally rewarding and interesting. And, because until you've been in that corner, you don't know what that corner's like any more than you know what
mm.
the area you're in right now is like. I'd like to sit around the lake and put a fishing pole in the water and come up, get some really
Yeah.
creative fish in on my hook so I can make them into a project. So just to say that, I don't think that one is better, like morally or, sort of in a sort of a spiritually better than any
Mm.
other way to do it. They're all equally valid if you like it.
Right. Yeah, I would slightly disagree that some provide more. Well, yeah, I'm gonna say I'm gonna bend a little bit and say it's an ecosystem, but there are uh, parts of it that if you can get into it and really get comfortable in it, you can do pretty well. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, but that's not to say that those are the only places that you can do that either, right?
No, and then you got to put up with Ivy Leaguers and all their
Oh,
attitudes. And
God, yeah.
well, I'm joking because that's only an American thing, really. But the other thing is, there's been studies done where, and I know this kind of like goes against our interest in making more money, but there are studies done where beyond a certain level of money, people aren't happier. They just have more
Right,
stuff
right.
and more, more obligations sometimes. So
Mhm.
probably more people asking them for money. So I think, being aware of the fact that sure, a seven-figure publishing deal would definitely make your life easier for a couple of years. It also comes with pressures and
Right.
issues that you can't see from where you're at if you've never had one. And
Yeah.
so I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I love it, of course, but also I think thinking that being aware of the fact that it is an ecosystem and there's lots of
Yeah.
juicy life all over it.
Yeah, and I would say, as part of that ecosystem too, it's constantly in flux. And
Yeah.
so your status in it, there's the cliche, yet I still kind of like it, where it says, be kind to the people you meet on the way up because you're going to meet them on the way back down.
Yeah. There you go with that up
And
down thinking again.
I know I'm sticking with the up down thing here, but the point being is that you can get into, you can get the agent and get the publishing deal with the big five publisher and have the book come out and then get dropped like a hot potato
Hmm.
and feel like, how did this all happen? Like it happened in a blink of an eye, right?
Yeah.
And so, where does that leave you? Is that I am now a failure at as a writer or, an artist or whatever? No, it
No.
means that there's the whole rest of the ecosystem for you to go play in,
Yes,
right? You
exactly.
may
Yeah.
find your way back to that part of it. You may not. You may say, you know what, it kind of sucked, and I like not having to deal with that. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I've got all of these opportunities and I'm doing work that's meaningful and I'm making a good living. And, yeah, you find happiness.
Yeah. I think for many creative people, it's really more about the body of work. And if you're in a situation where you're sort of hamstrung from producing work, whether because of, how that sphere operates or you're just uncomfortable, or, there's financial pressures or other marketing pressures, that kind of stuff, it might not be the best place for you. I think if every artist can get into whatever part of the ecosystem that allows them to produce a really strong body of work, everything else will follow.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this is a little bit of a mindset shift, which is one, happiness isn't found in one space in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
If you desire to be in that, as we've described it, very porous club, your thought definitely should be, if them, why not me?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe you're who they need, and maybe that's where you want to be, and it's going to work out. But the other piece of this is that there are lots and lots and lots of other opportunities. I was watching an interview of Zach Galifianakis recently.
Oh, he's funny.
And he's really funny. He's got an incredible career. And he was saying, hey, if it weren't for technology, I would not have the career that I have. And he gives this example of going and trying out for a part. And the only feedback that he got was something like, you should have taken a shower before you came in, or something like
Jesus.
And he was saying, if that was back in the day, that would have been it.
Yeah.
That was it. There was, kind of one place, and that's where you went. And he says, because, technology and, social media and being able to produce and make for yourself,
yeah,
as well as distribute for yourself, created opportunities for him that he would not have had. And now he's built this really great career. And he's got a gardening show on Netflix now, which is absolutely fantastic. And if you want to have pure joy, watch Zach Galifianakis talk gardening with little kids.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so, yeah, it's so, yeah, just because somebody else has built something that you want to get into, it may not be the best place. It doesn't mean that it's completely closed. It could very well be porous, but it also may not just be the right fit.
Yeah.
The creative world is I think a lot larger than we sometimes give it credit.
Yeah. Agreed. 100%. Okay, well, I'm going to just go through this wall now to the kitchen, to the clubhouse kitchen.
You're gonna osmosize.
Yeah, I gotta fry up a couple of eggs in there and
okay.
do some toast. Okay.
Okay. Don't burn anything, for God's sakes.
Okay. Thanks so much for listening to Gifted Underachievers, the podcast for mid-level creatives with delusional ambitions. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Hope you have a great creative week.